Today I want to talk to you a little bit about the link between histamine, diet, gut hormones, and in particular an enzyme that helps us to break down in histamine that I see come up quite a bit in my clients. So we know summer can be, for some, a time when allergies really show up, and I can certainly remember a time when I've been on camping trips where I was sneezing so hard and my eyes are watering so badly that we had to come home early. And there's nothing fun about sharing a tent with a snotty, sneezy snot monster. And you might find now, if you're a kind of a midlife woman, that you're reacting even more. So you might be experiencing for the first time, or finding that you are having symptoms that are worse now than ever before. And that includes itchy skin, having a bloated belly, having diarrhea, which can also be part of that allergic reaction. And there are lots of reasons why. So the first is to do with histamine. So what is histamine? Histamine is a protein, or rather it's what we call an amine. And it's basically a chemical that our body makes, has various functions. It's a natural part of our immune reaction, and its main role is communication. So it communicates to our cells from our brain. And in allergy or allergic reactions, it's the histamine that generally causes the itching through its communication with our nervous system and our nerves. It can make us vomit. It can make us have diarrhea if we eat certain foods, and it basically constricts the muscles in our lungs, making it hard to breathe too. So its histamine is one of the reasons why we can end up with having those anaphylactic reactions. But it's really important to our health. It tells our stomach cells to make stomach acid or hydrochloric acid, so we can then digest our food and absorb our nutrients. It helps our brain stay awake, which is why sometimes if you take an antihistamine, you can feel a bit drowsy. It protects us from foreign invaders, whether that's parasites or other things that we either ingest or we inhale. And there's basically a relationship between estrogen and histamine. So you might notice, if you track your cycle, that you have certain symptoms at certain types of your cycle. For example, you might have migraines, brain fog, itchy skin or hives. You might feel more anxious. You might struggle to sleep. And that might be at around ovulation, which is usually due to histamine and estrogen relationship with each other. So estrogen stimulates the release of histamine. It reduces an enzyme, which is what I want to talk to you about, called DAO. And that helps to clear estrogen from the body. It's not the only enzyme, there are others, but it's a really important one. And histamine stimulates the ovaries to release estrogen, so it can become this vicious cycle. So during ovulation, we can typically have we will have higher amounts of estrogen. We can end up with higher levels of histamine. So that's why we might experience those specific symptoms that I just mentioned. Now, progesterone counterbalances that because it increases the DAO enzyme, and that can prevent the release of more histamine, and it helps to basically, by increasing the production of the enzyme basically breaks estrogen down, helps us to get rid of it. It's a bit like a clogged drain. It helps to kind of unclog the drain. So in some women, it can mean during perimenopause and menopause, if you are experiencing high amounts of estrogen and low levels of progesterone. That can happen if you are still having periods, having cycles, you're ovulating. Then you can have high amounts of estrogen in comparison to progesterone, because progesterone has a slow decline. Estrogen kind of goes up and down a bit like a roller coaster. And then when we hit menopause and we stop having our periods and we don't cycle anymore, that's when estrogen starts to decline. So it might be, if you're having those allergy type symptoms, they can increase because estrogen's kind of going up and down and having like a crazy moment. So your itchy skin can be due to those hormone imbalances, not because you're losing your mind. High amounts of estrogen have also been linked to heavier periods, menstrual migraines, anxiety, endometriosis, insomnia. So endometriosis can become more common when you kind of hit that perimenopause, menopausal stage. That pre-period bloating, menstrual diarrhea, itchy skin and sneezing, irregular periods, and a lot of that is to do with its relationship with histamine. When estrogen goes up, histamine can go up. We know that high amounts of histamine have also been linked to diarrhea, abdominal cramping, bloating, reflux, blocked nose, sneezing, asthma, heart palpitations, itchy skin and hives, headaches, migraines, anxiety, insomnia, painful periods, irregular periods, and irregular cycles, endometriosis. So sometimes you're not entirely sure, is it the histamine or is it the estrogen, but they can go together. So when you see that there is a cyclic pattern, it's very likely due to estrogen's relationship with histamine. So why might we get high histamine? Well, there could be several reasons why you can be experiencing high amounts of histamine. You can be because you're transitioning into menopause and therefore experiencing high or fluctuating levels of estrogen and possibly low levels of progesterone to counterbalance that. You may be lacking the enzymes DAO, or there's another enzyme called HNMT, and they both clear histamine from the body. It can be that you maybe eat quite a lot of histamine-rich foods or foods that block those enzymes, DAO in particular. You can also maybe be taking medications that block those enzymes from working properly. So things like muscle relaxants, blood pressure medication, some antibiotics, diuretics, anti-vomiting or anti-nausea medication, cough medication, pain medication, asthma medication, and also some hormone contraceptives can affect those enzymes. If you have gut disorders, whether it's irritable bowel syndrome, any kind of inflammatory bowel disease, or you're a celiac, that can lead to increased inflammation. That can also mean that you can end up with increased histamine due to that inflammatory response. If you have a bacterial infection, such as small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which has been shown to stop food being digested properly, that can cause an overproduction of histamine too. And then the DAO enzyme, if you do have it, actually can't break down the excess histamine quick enough, which then is like that blocked drain. It's kind of there and it's building up because it can't be got rid of quickly enough. So here are my top tips. The first thing is track your cycle and see if there are specific histamine type symptoms that are occurring, particularly around ovulation, maybe prior to your period, but usually it's around ovulation. Just have a look to see when are you getting those symptoms if you are still having your monthly cycle. Now, you can try a low histamine or antihistamine diet for a month or so, see if that improves. It's not really an antihistamine, it's more of a low histamine. So it really just means reducing some of those histamine-rich foods. It might be that you do that around the time you have your symptoms. So rather than removing it all the time, around the time you ovulate, if that is when you're getting your premenstrual migraines or your itchy skin or your insomnia or anxiety, then that's the time, for about a week maybe, to actually really reduce the amount of histamine you eat. And that's going to be foods like fermented foods, unfortunately. So you don't necessarily want to do that all the time. Just see if it makes a difference in that short window during your cycle. Leftover food that's cooked, alcohol, cheese, tinned fish, dried fruits, avocado, those processed meats, bacon and ham, and salamis, spinach. And some people can actually is rich in histamine and can affect people. There are also foods that can trigger the release of histamine naturally in the body. And again, that's alcohol, chocolate, citrus fruits, nuts, bananas, tomatoes, and then things like alcohol, tea, and energy drinks can also then block that enzyme, the DAO enzyme. So you end up with eating histamine-rich foods, eating foods that make the body make histamine naturally in the body, and then you're drinking foods that actually block the enzyme that break down histamine. You've got a perfect storm. So you need to kind of address that. It might be that you have an underlying food intolerance, and that is increasing histamine level because it's an inflammatory reaction. So that does need to be checked. So the best way is through eliminating those foods that you think are a problem and then challenging them and see if you then actually react to those foods. And that's if you have an intolerance, or you can speak to your doctor and see if you can get a skin prick test for allergic reactions. Number 4 is to reduce stress. And I know I talk about stress a lot. But stress will create imbalances in your hormones and it will stuff up your digestion too. And trying to find ways to manage your stress is completely free. because that can be as simple as taking some time out and going and in your garden and taking a few minutes to do some deep breathing. It might be going for a walk, it might be practicing yoga, it might be listening to some music and dancing, it might be sitting on your deck and just having some quiet time out. There's lots of ways that you can actually reduce stress. So whatever works for you, try and do that. You can test to see if you don't make enough of the enzyme DAO. It's not an easy test to get, it's fairly expensive, but you can do this, and you can get this through a nutritionist, naturopath, or functional doctor. The other thing is, if you know you have any gut conditions, or you want to find out if you do, particularly something like SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, get that sorted, go and get that checked and tested. And if you have, then that needs to be addressed. Because if you don't, whatever you do will only be a temporary fix. So it's really important that you get help. Definitely lots of those veggies, because then again, that's going to help the gut to feed the good gut bacteria. But go and get some support and help if you do have any gut conditions that maybe it's not being managed, or maybe haven't even been diagnosed yet. The other thing you can do is actually try a DAO supplement. There's been some really good research to show that supplementation can actually significantly reduce those histamine type symptoms. And it's a much better supplement to take than living on antihistamines. And I've seen really massive changes on people that take that supplement. They don't take the antihistamine medication anymore. They take the supplement that basically gives them the enzyme that they're missing. And all of a sudden they can eat foods they couldn't eat before, and their symptoms are really reduced, if not gone away. So that's something to consider. And you could also, the supplement is actually cheaper than the test. You could always try the supplement, and if it doesn't work straight away, because it will, then you'll know you don't even need to be tested because the supplement didn't work, therefore it's not a problem with that enzyme. Make sure you're getting enough vitamin B6, because that upregulates the DAO enzyme. It boosts production of progesterone. And also a brain chemical called GABA, which is like the anti-anxiety chemical we make in our brain. And again, you can choose a supplement, B6 supplement. You want to make sure that you're getting all of the other Bs, but maybe with a little bit more B6, or you can get it through food. So meat, especially chicken, is really rich in B6. Sunflower seeds, chickpeas, leafy greens, papaya and melons are all rich in vitamin B6 too. Now, if you want to know more, contact me, book a free chat. We can have a conversation about what is going on for you and how I can support you. And if you go to my blog, there's a heap of references there you can go and have a read of as well. So let me know what you think. Let me know if you've got any questions, and I will see you for another installment. Take care, everyone.